After years of favoritism, my parents finally called me after 2 years, but they wanted my money, not me. The call came after 2 years of silence. 2 years since I'd spoken to any of them. Not a text, not a call, not a single face-to-face moment with the people who were supposed to be my family. I never expected to hear from them again, and honestly, I preferred it that way. Until Uncle Robert's voice cracked through the phone, urgent and pleading. "Emma, your parents were in a serious car accident. They're asking for you." My stomach knotted as I gripped the phone. Did I owe them anything? These people who never treated me like a daughter? But I'm not heartless, whatever they did. They still gave me life, so I agreed to go, not knowing this visit would unearth everything I'd spent 2 years burying. Victoria and I might be identical twins, but those 12 minutes she arrived before me somehow made her the chosen one. My parents only wanted one child. That was their plan. But fate played a cruel joke, giving them two. I wasn't supposed to exist. They discovered the twin pregnancy too late, and my mother refused to terminate due to the risks. From the day we were born, it was clear. Victoria was their only daughter in their hearts. I was just a shadow, an afterthought, a burden. Growing up, I tried desperately to earn their love. I quickly learned that the harder I tried, the more they resented me. When Victoria got B's and I got A's, I'd be scolded for making her feel inadequate. When I excelled in sports or music, anything Victoria didn't, they didn't praise me. They despised me more. Victoria never had to try. She'd shed a single tear, and they'd rush to her side, comfort dripping from their voices. "Emma, why must you always compete with your sister? Emma, why do you constantly make Victoria feel bad about herself?" What was my crime? Trying too hard? Refusing to remain in Victoria's shadow? Victoria didn't care about being better than me. She only cared about being worshipped. I fought for scraps of parental love while Victoria simply basked in it. I always sensed something was wrong but made excuses for them. They don't mean it. They don't realize they're treating me unfairly. Then came that Thanksgiving when all my illusions shattered. Uncle Robert, drunk on whiskey and loose-lipped, cornered me in the kitchen. "You know," he slurred, laughing, "your parents only wanted Victoria. You were just an unwanted accident." I forced a laugh, refusing to show weakness, but in that moment I stopped trying. I finally understood the truth I'd been running from my entire life. College was my escape. By 21, I had graduated from one of the state's top business schools. Not just graduated, I was valedictorian with a full scholarship. I hadn't cost my parents a single penny, and stupidly, I thought that might finally make them proud. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd acknowledge me for once. But when I called to share the news, Mom cut me off mid-sentence. "That's nice, honey, but we're dealing with Victoria right now. She's really struggling to find work after graduation." Victoria, who barely passed her classes at a mediocre college. Victoria, who spent more time partying than studying. Her unemployment was apparently more important than my achievement. I wasn't surprised, but the disappointment still stung. Then came our 21st birthday. I woke up that morning to an empty house. On the kitchen counter sat a hastily scribbled note. "We've gone to the beach with Victoria's friends. Back in a few days." Something inside me cracked. They hadn't just forgotten me. They'd planned an entire beach getaway for Victoria and her friends on our shared birthday. All I got was a card slipped under my door with a $50 gift card inside. $50. That's what my milestone birthday was worth to them. Standing in that silent house, I finally understood. Nothing would ever change. I would never be enough. I would always be the unwanted twin, the shadow child, the burden they never asked for. I texted my roommate from college who had an extra room in her apartment. Within hours, I had packed everything I owned into my car. I didn't leave a note. They had left without needing me. I would do the same. The next day, my phone rang. For a brief, foolish moment, I thought maybe they'd noticed I was gone. Maybe they were worried. "Emma, the kitchen sink is leaking. Can you call the plumber?" my mom asked, not even bothering with a hello. "I moved out yesterday," I replied calmly. A pause. Then, "Oh, really? Well, that's good then." That was it. No questions about where I'd gone, no concern for my well-being, nothing. And that was the last time I heard their voices until Uncle Robert's call 2 years later. For 2 years, I built a life without them. I found a job at a marketing firm, made new friends, even started therapy. I was healing slowly, painfully, but healing nonetheless. No messages, no calls, no unexpected visits. It was as if I'd never existed to them, which was fitting since that's how they'd always treated me anyway. Then came that ordinary Tuesday evening. I was cooking dinner when my phone lit up with Uncle Robert's name. I stared at it, finger hovering over the decline button. Why answer? What could he possibly say that would matter now? But something made me pick up. "Emma!" His voice was frantic. "You need to come to Memorial Hospital right away. Your parents were in a serious car accident." My mind went blank. The spatula in my hand clattered to the floor. Part of me wanted to hang up, block his number, and continue cooking as if nothing had happened. They hadn't cared about me for 23 years. Why should I care now? They'd never once called in 2 years to see if I was even alive. But another voice inside me argued back. I'm not that cold. Whatever they did, they gave me life. I don't need to love them, but I should at least see what happened. I decided to go, not for them, but for me. To face my past one final time. When I arrived at the hospital, I discovered they'd been admitted 3 days ago. 3 whole days, and I was just being called now. "We tried Victoria first," Uncle Robert admitted, not realizing how his words cut me. "But she refused to come." The golden child had turned her back on them. According to Robert, Victoria didn't want her husband to think she came from a family of moochers. She couldn't leave the children, who were actually just her husband's kids from his previous marriage. She didn't want to ruin her image as the perfect mother in her in-laws' eyes. I couldn't believe it. The daughter they had chosen over me, the one they abandoned me for, was now abandoning them. When I finally entered their hospital room, they looked smaller somehow. Dad's leg was in traction, Mom's face covered in bruises. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. That feeling evaporated the instant they opened their mouths. "Emma," Mom said weakly, not bothering to ask how I'd been for the past 2 years. "We need your help with the hospital bills." "No." "How are you?" "No." "We've missed you." No apology for 2 years of silence, just a blunt request for my money. "Insurance won't cover everything," Dad added, as if this explained everything. "Victoria can't help us right now with her family situation." I stood there, blood rushing to my face. 2 years without a word, and this is what they wanted? They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as an ATM. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice unnaturally calm. "You didn't call me when the accident happened. You called Victoria first. When she refused, I became your backup plan. And now, without even asking how I've been for the past 2 years, you're asking for my money." The silence in the room was deafening. Mom broke the silence first. "Well, can you help us or not?" I looked directly into their eyes, the same eyes that had overlooked me for 23 years, and said one word, "No." The change was immediate. Mom's face contorted with rage, her body jerking forward despite her broken ribs. "You ungrateful little bitch," she screamed. "After everything we've done for you, is this how you repay your parents?" I remained perfectly calm. Everything they'd done for me? What exactly was that? The years of neglect, the blatant favoritism? The complete disregard for my existence? Dad didn't yell, he just fixed me with that cold stare I'd known my entire life. "You're no longer my daughter." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Was I ever?" I turned and walked out, ignoring my mother's continued screams. The nursing staff rushed in as I left, their concerned faces the last thing I saw before the elevator doors closed. Standing alone in that elevator, I waited for the pain to hit. That gut-wrenching ache of finality. But it never came. How could I lose what I'd never really had? They weren't my parents in any way that mattered. They were simply strangers who had occupied the same house as me for 21 years. And I would never go back there again. As I drove home, my phone kept lighting up with Uncle Robert's calls. I ignored them all. I had nothing left to say to any of them. Eventually, a text came through. "Emma, you deserve to know the truth. Your parents don't have money because they spent your wedding fund." I nearly swerved off the road. "Wedding fund? What wedding fund?" Another text followed. Your grandparents set up equal funds for both you girls before they died. Your parents spent more than half of yours on Victoria's wedding. The rest, they used for their Europe trip last summer. I burst into laughter, the kind that borders on hysteria. They hadn't just abandoned me, they had stolen my future to pamper Victoria. The Europe trip they'd posted all over Facebook, luxury hotels, fine dining, designer shopping sprees, had been funded with my money. And now they wanted me to bail them out? Not in this lifetime. I felt no remorse as I blocked Uncle Robert's number. I didn't owe them anything. Not my time, not my presence, and certainly not my hard-earned money. They'd drained their savings on Victoria, on frivolous luxuries, and now they were facing the consequences. That was not my problem. They had truly lost me forever now, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. 2 weeks after cutting all ties with my parents, a strange sense of peace settled over me. No more pleading calls, no more accusatory texts. I thought maybe, finally, it was over. I was wrong. That quiet Thursday afternoon, an unexpected knock broke my concentration. I wasn't expecting anyone. My friends always texted before dropping by. Peering through the peephole, my breath caught in my throat. Victoria. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. She was dripping in luxury, designer clothes, expensive jewelry, flawless makeup, and that poised, practiced stance of someone who considers themselves elite. But her eyes were the same. Eyes that had always looked at the world as if it owed her something. Strangely, I felt nothing. Not jealousy, not anger, not even hurt. Just boredom. Victoria smiled that practiced smile and walked in without waiting for an invitation, her eyes scanning my modest apartment with thinly veiled judgment. "California is just amazing," she gushed, settling onto my couch uninvited. "We have this gorgeous beachfront property. Gregory takes care of everything. I don't even need to work. The kids are adorable. I treat them like they're my own." I just sat there, silently watching as she spent 15 straight minutes detailing her perfect life. But when she started talking about being blissfully happy with her husband, something in her voice caught my attention. Victoria wasn't nearly as happy as she was pretending to be. I knew about Gregory, 32, wealthy, recently divorced, and I knew exactly why he'd married my sister. He needed custody of his children, and as a busy businessman, the courts weren't inclined to rule in his favor. But a perfect stepmother changed the equation. Victoria wasn't a beloved wife. She was a convenient chess piece. "Does he love you?" I asked abruptly, cutting through her monologue. Victoria froze. For a split second, her mask slipped. Then she laughed. "Are you jealous?" I couldn't help but laugh in return, not even slightly. Eventually, she got to the real point of her visit. She wanted me to reconcile with our parents. She'd promised to stay with them for a month after the accident, but after just 2 weeks, she was desperate to escape. "They need someone, Emma," she said, feigning concern. "And honestly, they miss you." Translation. She wanted me to replace her so she could return to her perfect California life without feeling guilty. I didn't feel angry anymore. Only pity. Victoria had traded one prison for another, from being our parents' golden child to being Gregory's trophy wife. She'd never learned to stand on her own. "I'll think about it," I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Victoria beamed, certain she'd won. She hugged me before leaving, already making plans for her escape back to California. The moment the door closed behind her, I pulled out my phone and blocked her number. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop to finish the work I'd been doing before the interruption. This time, she wouldn't get another chance to come back. After Victoria left, I sat down in the stillness of my apartment and really looked around. This space was mine. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every bill paid by my own hard work. No one had given me anything. I had a stable job at a company that valued me. I had friends who chose to be in my life not because of obligation, but genuine connection. I was free from the toxicity that had suffocated me for 23 years. I answered to no one. No one controlled me. I had won. Meanwhile, what did Victoria have? On the surface, everything our parents had ever wanted for her, wealth, status, a perfect family. But beneath that glossy exterior, she was trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who didn't want her. He only needed her to play a role in his custody battle. Those children she called hers would always love their biological mother more. She had no money of her own, no career, nothing that truly belonged to her. My sister, the golden child, the chosen one, was nothing more than a bird in a gilded cage. And my parents? They had bet everything on Victoria. They had poured all their money, all their love, all their hopes into her, leaving nothing for me. And in the end, she had turned her back on them just as quickly as she'd turned it on her perfect husband whenever his back was turned. They had lost everything. I picked up my phone and methodically blocked every single contact I had for anyone in my family. I had nothing left to say to any of them. They had squandered their final chance. That evening, I stepped out onto my balcony and took a deep breath. The sky was impossibly blue. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from anything. Not my family's disapproval, not the shadow of my twin, not the constant feeling that I wasn't enough. I was free, truly free. And as I stood there, breathing in that sweet air of independence, I realized something profound. You don't need someone else's love to be whole. Sometimes, loving yourself is enough.